Ann from Paintnporcelain. I'm here to teach beginners how to get started in China painting, and if you've been painting for a while, I'm here to encourage you to paint along with us. And today we're going to be working on the second fire of our acorns. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about is the fact that a lot of beginners, especially, when you do a first fire on things, and it comes back out of the kiln, sometimes a lot of it fires off and you don't know exactly, where you left off. And so this is what mine turned out like after the first fire. Now you can see very clearly that a lot of these leaves in particular fired out in the middle. And I might have a really hard time trying to figure out where to go from here. So what I would recommend when that happens is that you get yourself a Stabilo, which is a real soft lead pencil like this, and just go through. Now don't draw it all over again. Don't make heavy lines, because making heavy lines is going to get in your way when you go to paint. But just do a little dashy line. Let me do one here and I'll show you. Okay, can you see it up in there? Yeah. It's like a little dash, very, a line that's very, very intermittent and light. And that's kind of what you want to do. That will then tell you where the leaf ends. And like here I have a turnover. And if I didn't know this was a turnover, I could just outline it briefly like that with my pencil. And that would remind me that it's a turnover. So there are a lot of times when you're painting on a first fire and it comes out and you can't figure out where you left off, that this could be very handy. So just keep one of these handy. And then the nice thing is, as you're painting, this kind of moves with your paint. So you don't have those lines that you have to deal with, or it'll just disappear, and but it'll guide you until it does disappear. The colors we're going to use today are, okay, I have Cool Shadow, which I don't know if you could tell, but it's a really pretty blue, kind of a gray blue. Then I have Chartreuse, Moss Green, Black Green. And this is my Cool Green, which I told you last time you could use as jade. I also have a warm brown gray and a dark brown. So this is a light and a dark brown, a light, a medium, and a dark green. You don't have to have exactly these colors. You could use baby blue for the blue. You need an orange, maybe, but if you don't want to put the orange on, you don't have to. A light yellow, I'm using Buttercup, and I'm using Baker's Brown. But for those of you that have yellow brown works just about as well. So I'm just going to tilt you down, and we're going to get going and give you a chance to see what we're going to do on the second coat. Always use the number 10 brush. I just love it, love it, love it. Especially something this size, which I think is about I would imagine an 8-inch, maybe a little bigger than an 8-inch, or even the tiles that I paint on. I like using that. I tend to always do the light coming from the left. I just do. That's the way I do it. Some people, you can have it coming from above, you can have it coming from the right. It's entirely up to you, but you might want to just put an X wherever the light is coming from to remind you if you're new, because a lot of times that's a key to where all the light colors will be and where all the shadows will be. Okay, I'm going to start out, since we're going to have the light coming from that way, I'm actually going to use a little bit of yellow. And this is my Buttercup. It's a bright yellow, and so you should be able to see it pretty well. Okay, now you put the color on wherever you want it. Now this light is going to come across, but it could come down into here, so maybe I'll put a little yellow down in here. I hold my brush closer to the end to keep things light and smooth. The further down you hold it, the smoother strokes you'll get, because you're not being quite so heavy-handed. And then you can kind of decide, okay, I want a little yellow on these, and maybe a little yellow right up in here, maybe a little there too. So I just kind of put my yellow wherever I wanted it. And you can clean your brush, you don't have to. I'm going to start by going into the Cool Shadow now and putting the Cool Shadow in up around the top. As you're putting the blue on, you can come right over some of these leaves. That'll be perfectly fine, because having a little blue on the leaves does not hurt anything. And so I'm just putting the blue in up in here a little bit. And then if you want to pull it out to the end, you do the same thing we did before. Like I said, you're going to go very lightly, and you're going to do what we call cross hatching. So that means, let me use a darker green here for you. That means you, a little oil. This tile is not as nice as the china to paint on. And you paint this way for a little bit, then you paint this way for a little bit, then you can turn it over if you need to and swipe it. Each time you turn it, watch this again. If you paint it this way, you see how I have all these streaks in there? I did that intentionally. And then you go this way, and that will, look at how it smoothed that out. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just very lightly using this cross hatch stroke to kind of smooth things out. All right, let's clean my brush now because I didn't want the dark on there that soon. Alrighty, and we're going to keep going. I'm going to, let's see here. I think I'm going to go down in here a little bit and put a little blue just so I have it. And I think I'm going to go over on this side and put in a little blue just so I have it. I kind of like to have the blues underneath and on top. I don't want it just in one spot. You don't want it to magically stop at a line like here. You can see a little bit of a line forming. So you're going to kind of bring it out into the yellow a little bit so that it's not this line that forms. Okay. And you can take it right out to the end. If you don't move the color right to the end of your plate and you try to do it on another fire, what will happen is you will get a line. And no matter how hard you try, you won't be able to get rid of that line. And I'm just going back and forth now. This is a little over oily. I'm going to add a little, there we go. I like to paint nice and dry. And by dry, I mean you pat off as much of the oil as you can. All righty, there we go. Okay, now, before I go too much further in the background, I think what I'm going to start doing is do some of these leaves around the top so I can see how it looks with the background. And if you're a new painter, that might be a little bit confusing to you, but I think you'll see that it'll help you ground your piece a little bit. So I'm going to take what is a black green, and I'm going to start and come up here. And I think I'm going to also start and go down here. I think that might be better. This is the darkest spot. There we go. I'm going to full load now with moss green, side load with black green. And I'm just going to put back in that line down the middle here that we had from last time. And I'm going to pull it out lightly. Then I'm going to take a little bit of orange. And add a little orange here for you so that you can see a little bit of orange down the middle there. Going back into my green. And I'm just going to pull it gently. I'm going to go back on this, piece and use my pen this time too, which will, I think, make a difference. Okay, well, putting just the greens and the colors I want on here, and then I'm going to pull out the highlight. There we go. And these edges are a little dark, so I'm going to go and try to even that out by pulling the dark back. So we don't have like a line like it seems like we do now. And then I will put my center veins in and that kind of thing with the pen later. And I think you'll find it works very well. Up here, so this is what I have so far. I'm working around these acorns at the top. There's also one that's kind of hidden right there. I'm going to work around those initially, working on the leaves, and then I'll come back to the acorns. So here I'm going to, I need a little bit darker color, so I'll add a little dark green. There we go. And work around that. But as I get closer to this leaf that's under, I fade out because I don't want it to be too dark. Okay, I'm adding a little adding a little orange here. And then I'm coming down the other side of that leaf, and I'm using chartreuse and a side of moss just to get back in some of the color I lost when I fired it. And I'm also going to put a little more orange down, a little more orange down in here. Oh. Anytime it gets too dark on you, you just wipe it on your towel and that will kind of take care of it. But I like a little bit of orange just to kind of offset the blues. I think it makes it really pretty. So I have those two leaves so far. And then I'm going to do the leaf on the other side. I'm doing a full load of moss with a side load of the black green. And I'm coming up here, and this is the fold over. So I'm being very gentle about that fold over and just going down the center of it with a full load of moss and a side load of the dark green. And you can cut into the leaf underneath to give it a little interest. You see how I cut in there a couple of places just to give it a little interest right there? And then gently come down to the bottom. Add a little more dark green if you need it. And that gives you a really nice flip over. Then I'm going to take my moss green with a little orange, and I'm going to start pulling out this way so that it doesn't just stop there, it comes out this way. Chartreuse with a side load of orange, and I'm going to, need a little more orange. My orange is, maybe my brush is too dirty. You get green and orange together, the color doesn't always come out the way you want it to. Okay. Oh, then it comes out too bright. All right. Correct that a little bit there. It's just too, came out a little too far with it, so I'll go back in, get my buttercup, and just pull it back. Okay. Then I'm going to pull this color down. And I'm going to pull across it because I see some lines. You may not be able to see them on your end, but they are there. And then I'm going to take moss green and just go underneath a little bit. Little moss with a little black green. Oh, am I in? Here, let me hold it down further so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. And maybe a little right in through here. And we'll just pull it up a little bit. Pull it down a little bit. Just play with it so it gets nice and smooth. Okay, so that's my turnover there. Can you see the turnover? I think this orange up in here needs a little softening. Okay. Well, like I said, I'm going to be putting some pen work on here. I think that you'll find that that pen work will really help too. Okay, I'm going to go through and pull out a little of this here. Want a little more of a highlight there. And maybe a little more of a highlight here. Okay. All right, I have my little rounded brush now. This is a 4, I think. It's one of those that I got from Burgett Porter. They're really nice. They've got the little rounded tip on them. Here, if I hold it in front of that, you probably can see a little better. And they're great for these little acorns. I'm going to take a little yellow and just put on this side of the acorns. Yeah, come here, you guys. Maybe a little there, because there's one up there. You can hardly see them. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my warm brown warm brown gray, and just, can you see that? Let me do it up here where you can see it. I'm just putting in a little bit of shadow on this side here. On this side it'll be here because here's our light coming. Okay, and I put a little bit of, I'm just putting shadows in. Can you see the shadows I put on those little guys? Now, they do have a little stripe to them. And I might do that on the third fire. I'm also going to take the dark brown and start working on their little cap. And there's a little thing at the bottom there. And I'm going to have to put some dark green in the middle here because I've got white. I don't know why. I'm working on the little caps. Just taking the side of this brush and I'm just doing a little bit of the cap. Just pulling it back. And then I'm going to use the same brush since it works so well and put a little dark green on it and put some green behind this because there should be leaves behind this. And unfortunately something maybe fired out. And I can get the dark in there. Okay, that's a little better. All right. I'm going to go back now and start the backgrounds. I'm going with cool colors, so I picked my favorite cool colors. One of my favorites is this cool shadow. And I'm not going to put a real dark background on this time. I'm going to do that on the third fire because I want the blue to show through. And if I do the dark, dark, dark green on this fire, the blue will not show through the way I'd like it to. Here, I'm using a chartreuse now out here because I want to get some greens in the background so that on the next fire, and I'll put a little blue over here, on the next fire I can get, this brush is just too tiny. Let me get a bigger brush. This is Joyce Burlew's brush, and it's a 12. It does a really nice background though, I found. I just need to get some blue on here. I just want it on before I paint these leaves down at the bottom because then if I put on the background first. You can put on the background whatever way works best for you. Brush is shutting. There we go. But I like to put on the background first because I feel like if I put the background on first, I'm not messing up my leaves or anything. Like these down here. See, I haven't painted them yet. So I go ahead and I put my background on first. I always bring it out to the edge if I can. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can go back and straighten that out later. But the idea is that if you put your background on first, on the second coat, if you mess things up, you can correct them by going in and doing the leaves and things. So yeah, this will go a little faster. I'm doing a lot in the blue. And the reason I'm doing a lot in the blue is because this is only the second coat. I'm actually going to bring in the darker colors on the third coat. And the third coat will be interesting to the beginners because it's, I need a little more oil. It's, I'm only going to do what I need to do. I'm not doing everything. I'm only doing what I need to do. So this is second coat. I'm just painting over, taking the blue, putting it kind of where I want the depth to be, even though it's not a dark color particularly. And I'm painting right over my little pine cones, my little acorns and the whole bit here. And I'm going to put a little chartreuse up in here. Why chartreuse? I don't know. I just felt like it. I kind of like chartreuse, and it just seemed like that would be a nice mix with the blue. I just kind of choose colors as I go. I mix them too. You notice I haven't cleaned my brush in a while, and I'm just going now into the blue and then into the chartreuse, and it gives you kind of a watercolor effect. Can you see up in this area here? A little blue, a little chartreuse. And then I'm going to come down here and do this. Oops. This brush bends a lot, and so that's the primary reason that I only use it for background, because it seems like it gets going and you can't always control the brush. And I like brushes I can control when I'm working. Okay, so I'm going out to the edge on this plate. And then I'm just coming down to the bottom. It's a lot of background work, I know, but if you've ever worked on a plate, you know that you spend a lot of time putting your background on. And the secret to putting on the smooth background is to hold the brush back as far as you can, apply the color, and then do that crosshatch that I showed you earlier to try to get the color to spread out evenly. See, I'm going back and forth, and then if you need to, you can also turn the plate, and that will give you some of the color too. Oh, got a little orange on there. I'll clean my brush. I didn't want to have to clean my brush, but I guess I will. Now I'm going to use a little bit of yellow in here and just give it a little sunshine. So I've got the sunshine kind of coming across the plate. I might add a little yellow up in here yet. A little up in there. And I think I want a little more blue down in here. It's personal preference, the reason I'm doing this. The reason I pick these colors in these spots is just personal preference. I look at it, I hold it back, and I say, okay, that needs a little more there. That needs a little more there. But I've just got the background on a little bit. I don't like all the yellow up in here, so I'm going to add a little blue. There we go. And I know I already did the leaves up there, but there. That's better. It's a nice mix now, I think. Okay. And if you get a little green, big deal. Okay. So that's what I have for my background right now. Now the background is very light. It won't stay that way. On the next coat, I will make it darker. And before I put it in the kiln, I'll go around the edges with my brush and make sure that I don't have my fingers all over it, because I'm sure I will. So let me show you what I have so far. Okay, so I'm going back and putting a little yellow on each of these little acorns there. Putting a little yellow on this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. Okay, that helps get them going. And then I'm going to take, and I'm going to worry about this leaf down here, doing chartreuse with a side load of moss. Oops. Yeah, this is a little dark for me, so if I use the moss, I think it might take away from the darkness of it. And I'm just tapping down the middle. Now this is farther away from my main leaves, and I don't really want it to be, put a little orange on there, as you can tell. Gotta get a little darker up in here just to balance off the other side. Okay. Too well defined, because part of this is that this is down here, you just want to suggest a leaf. The further you go from your main focal point, the less you want things to be real exact. And up here, I'm just going to add down the middle there a little bit, and then come back on this side a little bit. This guy's kind of ugly. He doesn't have a lot of shape to him. I don't know if I can correct that or not. Sometimes you can. If you pick some colors and just go in and try to add a little shape to him, you might be able to. His shape is kind of, I don't know. There, I tried to add a little bit of shape to him so that can you see that there? So he stands out a little better. I'm going to smooth him a little bit on my end. He looks a little rough. Okay, and I've got these guys down here. Now the bottom ones, I'm hardly going to do anything with. I'm just going to take a little bit of like a dark moss, like a moss green, and just sort of shape them up a little. I don't want them to be real out there. And then this guy, I'm going to take some moss green and a little bit of orange and just, okay. Because we don't want them to be in the line of fire too much. And I'm looking up here, this needs a little more green, a little darker green up in here. Oh, yeah, that may not be bad. Here, let's see. No, actually, that does help a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going back now to my acorns. And I'm going to take my warm brown gray Or, yeah, and I'm just going to darken this side of them. Oh, and over here too. I forgot I worked on those a little bit. So we have the leaves kind of mapped in there, if you can see the leaves. And now we're going to go and take the the rich brown, and we're going to do the little caps up a little more. I'm just dotting on them back and forth using the side of my brush, not the top of my brush, the side of my brush. And I'm just there, making them a little more obvious. And I'll do the same thing over on this side. I turn the plate over to do this, and I come at it from the back side just because I seem to have better luck that way, because I'm pulling towards myself instead of trying to pull down. See that little guy up there? I'm using just the rich brown. I go along the base where it overlaps, and then I just come up a little bit. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing here. This one doesn't have to be as well defined. It's way in the background. See how I didn't overdo him because he's down further than the other one. And this one, I think I need to do something a little better because his little cap is kind of difficult to see. There we go. Okay, I got a little brown in there. Okay. So that's what I have so far. Now it's time to get the pen out. Okay. Let me do this. I'm going to push that up, pull this over so you can see it a little better than you could. I'm going to clean it off. Now what I do to mix my pen oil, I take paint that's already mixed. And because on this I'm going to use the dark brown, I put the dark brown on here. The pen oil that I use, hang on, there we go, is Amps Easy Flow. It's not Amps, it's AMP5 Easy Flow. I get that from Dallas, China, at dallaschina.com. And you just go in under, you look under supplies, and then you look under oils, and you'll find it. And I put my knife in on an angle and just get some oil on it and start mixing it. The oil's on both sides, and I'm just going to mix, mix, mix. Now, this is not thick enough, see? I hold it up, nothing drips off. That means I need a little more oil, and I go in on the side of my knife like this so that only a little bit of the knife is in there. And I take some oil and put in here and mix it just like you would for your paint. And then I get the other side. You have to be real careful. Too much oil and you'll have it really runny. But it should drip like that off the end. Did you see that dripping? Okay, when you get that, you know you have it the right consistency. Make sure you close up your oil, because if you don't, you could lose your oil by just dumping it. Then you get a pen. Now, you want to make sure the nib or whatever they call it up here at the top is newer. If you haven't changed this in a couple of months and you use it a lot, then you really need to change it. And I use, let me see what kind I use here. I think it's get it out. There's a little number. Ooh, where is it? I may not be that good at seeing it. Let's see here. I think, oh, it's there, but I can't read it. I think I use a 201. I think that's what I use. It's a very fine one. And you just put it back in your pen and then tighten it. If you have this kind of pen, and it works really well. So you're going to scoop it up on the side. And there's a couple of things about using a pen. First of all, there's a little hole there. See that little hole? Wait, there, see the little hole? You don't want to clog that. You also want to tap it on something before you start writing, because you'll get a glob. You always get a glob. And you want to avoid that at all cost. So you tap it first. If you want, you can even practice a little writing on here. You have to hold it at an angle. It's about a 45-degree angle. But just, you'll kind of get a feel for it. And then you're going to go up here, and you're just going to, see, I put in the center vein there. Can you see that? I know we've got the ring light there and we're fighting with it. See? I got it there. And then I'm going to go around the edge a little bit. Not everywhere, just a little bit. Just so that you can outline the edge. If you're like me, you're probably better with outlining than you are with actually painting it in. There. Can you see what I've done? I've outlined that leaf. I put that in. Then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to start working on these little acorns. And I'm just going to outline them, make sure they have that little thing at the end. And the secret with the cap is you kind of go scallopy across the top. Can you see the scallops I made on this guy right here? I'm going to do it here. You put the little thing at the bottom. Maybe come down the darker side. You can even come down the other side. You can suggest the little cracks that are in it. You can always take a brush and fix this. It's better to do it from the top down. But I did the little scallopy things with him. Can you see all that? It's kind of hard, I know. There, and then you can take your brush and sort of soften those a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go back in. This guy's turned over. Now I'm just suggesting it. I'm not doing the whole thing. I'm just doing a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. Have you seen the old plates, the antique plates where they have this on it? I kind of like that look. Especially for a fall leaf, it's got enough color on the leaf that it'll hold up. See, I'm not doing everything, just here and there. Okay. Now I don't need to do this leaf down here, but I do need to kind of reinforce this branch. And I'm probably just going to come down that far on there, just so you have a feel that it has, maybe a little bit here. See, you have a feel that it has the leaves. Okay, here again, we're going to go scallopy. Scallopy, put your little guy at the end. Now when you put on eyeliner, sometimes you don't go all the way to the edge. That's kind of the way this is. You're just going to put on what you need. And if you want something a little more tricky down there, you can do that. Now I'm coming down the main one in the middle. Try to taper off. And remember, if these are too distinct, you can always go back. See how I did that there? You can always go back and use your brush and mess them up a little. If you're like me, it's harder to get it on with the pen. So I think a lot of times, oh, and then here I want to come down a little bit, those little cracks in the top. You don't have to do a lot. Up here, I'm going to make it a little darker. You're drawing now. So for those of you that say, I can't paint, you can draw. And just go back and forth until you get the texture you want there. There's a little one right here. You almost can't see him. And if I didn't go through and outline him, I don't know that you'd even know he was there. I'm doing the curly Q, oops, there. I did the curly Q's up there, or the little scallops. Oh, better dot it. I'm going to do a scallop here. I'm not going to do it on all of them. This one doesn't need it, and the reason it doesn't need it is because it's kind of out of the range. I will do the sides a little bit there. And the final thing would be down here, make sure your little branches attach. Over here, you're going to make sure that this is filled in nicely. I think that I might be better off doing with a liner. I'm just going to take it through to the end. Okay, and then finally, let's take my liner. Ooh, where are you, liner? Oh, you'd want to sign your name too, by the way, while you've got this stuff out. But you can also use the pen oil and just put it on your liner, like I just did right here, and just play with it a little bit. Pull it around. It'll be thinner than you're used to working with, but if you've got a lot of it made up, why not, you know? Okay. Now that's the second fire, and it's basically pen and ink, and then I did some of the leaves and things like that. I will go back through now that I'm not holding it up. Take my brush and just smooth a few places here and there, and critically look at where I put the pen work and decide if it's, you know, some of it's too dark or there's too much of it in some places, and take some of that off. And then I'll go around my edge and just even out my edge and fire it. And then we'll be ready for the final fire. And we're only going to put things where we need to. So pick up those brushes, keep painting, and I will see you next time. I hope you enjoyed the program. And I hope you'll take a minute to subscribe so that other people can learn more about China painting and we can get the word out to more people. You also can look at the links below. My Paintnporcelain.com website has a lot of freebies and printables for new and experienced painters, as well as studies, supplies, and even some of my hand-painted china. So thank you again, and I'll see you next time.